Okay, so the goal of this next discussion is basically to highlight some key features of these 4 articles. The class was given 3 of these articles, and we'll do as a group the 4th one, and then we'll get to the review for the test on Thursday. So for group number 1, the word processing in Parkinson's disease is impaired for action verbs but not for concrete nouns. Can you guys kind of summarize what were they up to here? What did they do and what did they find here? Any thoughts from our group? Hannah, Lily, Sam, Samuel, Daisha?
So they were, they used sentences to stimulate the parts of the brains that were related to like motor functioning. And that's how they found that there is a link between like action verbs. So one of the sentences was like, lift the cup, then the part of the brain that would like control the motor function on the hand would be activated.
It would be activated when it was one of those action types of things. And they did here what a lexical decision task. Have we mentioned that term before? I'm not sure if we have or not. What is a lexical decision task? For your group, did you see that term, lexical decision task? If I put up the letters M-A-R-D and I say to you, word or non-word, guess what that is? That's a lexical decision task. A lexical decision task, you give somebody stimuli and you ask them, is it a word or non-word? What do you think you collect when you do an LDT? What is the DV? What would your group say you probably collect? If I put up M-A-R-D versus M-A-R-T, what would you find is the difference, Lily? So if I put up a stimulus on the screen that said M-A-R-D, and I put up another stimulus that said M-A-R-T, and I showed them each one of those to you one at a time, what do you think you would find when I showed those to you?
You'd probably spend more time looking at the non-word than the word.
Exactly. So guess what we collect is the dependent variable? Reaction time, chronometric. So a lexical decision task is where you look at a stimulus and you decide word or non-word as quickly as you can, and it picks up your reaction time. The other task, and this one is very near and dear to my heart, is called a naming task. Guess what you do in a naming task, Hannah?
Name what you see.
You put something up on the screen and then it collects how long it takes you to say that. I did that for my dissertation. So I could put up Hannah, or I could put up Hannah backwards. We almost have that with Lily, but not quite. E-L-E-L-L-L. Sorry. So in a naming task, you put up a stimulus and you see how long it takes somebody to say it. You record the reaction time, and once again, that's a chronometric analysis. Why is that considered chronometric?
Because you're collecting time as your independent variable.
You're collecting time, and you're using time as an indicator of what? Very importantly, we use time as an indicator, Kate, for what purpose?
The speed of processing.
The speed of what's going on mentally in your lexicon. So they did this in this particular study, and if we go to the abstract here, they gave action words, they gave regular words. People familiar with Parkinson's disease? Unfortunately, my father has it, and it's at a very advanced stage. You lose cortical function, motor control is lost. Are there medications to treat Parkinson's disease? Yeah. Does anybody know what you do, Talaba?
I mean, I've heard that it's just a combination of physical therapy and just regular medication.
It is. But does anybody know what kind of Parkinson's is seen as you don't have enough of a particular neurotransmitter if you're getting type reductionistic? Does anybody know what that neurotransmitter is? Kind of says it in the article a little bit. You don't have enough dopamine, so you give people L-DOPA is the idea. So they gave them their L-DOPA and they wanted to see what goes on here when you give them various activities to do here. So in the abstract, it basically says, the present study investigated the impact of PD, Parkinson's, on a lexical decision task for action words and concrete nouns with a priming. So they kind of prime people, either showing them the word before the word was there and asking them word or non-word, or not. If you had taken your L-DOPA, would things work out pretty well here? Would you be able to name things and decide word, non-word pretty quickly? Yeah, it would take you longer to say a non-word than a word. But if you weren't on your medication, you had a lot more trouble with what? The action ideas. And the place we would see that is we'd go to not the results, but the beginning of the discussion. Or so we hope. And they basically found, if you look at the beginning of the discussion, the motor regions are working here. If you take your medicines, you'll be able to kind of attach things. But if you don't take your medicine, then you won't be able to attach words to function. So it was very much kind of a naming task, kind of an attentional situation here, and working with the dopaminergic system here. So lexical access, figuring out word versus non-word, was kind of the way here with, and according to our hypothesis, priming doesn't work if you're not on your medications and you're given a prime, especially for a non-word. Comments or questions about that article? Okay, let's move on to article number 2. Article number 2, Neuropsychology of Adults with ADHD, a meta-analytic review. Can our group number 2 kind of summarize some comments about it? Tell about it.
Rather than being just a straightforward experiment, it was just more so a collection of what other people were doing. But there was also that they had to consider like faults in experiments or faults in what you could observe.
So they were kind of pooling together experiments. Did we talk about, I think we did, the different kind of levels of evidence-based in here? So this is a meta-analysis. They put everything together and looking at basically ADHD. And notice what the journal is. Is it cognitive neuroscience here? Bella, Kate, is this cognitive neuroscience?
No, it's neuro.
Psychology. So why do you think it's neuropsychology?
Because they were looking at how the adults who had ADHD, how they differed from those who didn't have ADHD across several domains.
Again, in several domains with the hope of maybe trying to help these people out. We're trying to do something very applied here, so let's summarize what the research says. And as you look through the abstract here, this was just published a few years ago. What was kind of the main points they made? Bella, what was, as you read the abstract here, what was kind of the main idea of this particular abstract? What did they basically do and find?
Oh, sorry. It was, let's see, it was all these like 33 or 34 different studies.
So you find all the different studies and you put them together. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
And it was about impairments in attention and inhibition and memory compared to simple reaction times.
Yeah, that there seem to be impairments in attention and memory, and they give ideas of future research and future ideas. So they went through in their method section. Here's all the things we look through. That's what you do in a meta-analysis. They kind of give the key results: attention, attentional functioning, motoric inhibition. You don't have to go through all the details here. Response inhibition, where you can't respond in a directive way. If you really want to find out the main results here, where do we go? The beginning part of the discussion. Once again, they review things here and they find there are neuropsychological deficits. It's very domain specific. And then they come up with the idea of here's what we can do in the future I think it's on the very last page. So here's what we should do to help people out. Very much an applied neuropsychology realm here, because they're really trying to say, here's what we need to do to try to help people. How many people know people with ADHD? It's a very common type of situation. So future situations, what can we do to help them with paying attention, following through, doing their tasks, very much on a cognitive intervention level to help people out. So that's kind of article number 2. Any other comments from your group about this article? Okay, so that's number 2. Let's see, for group number 3, which article did we give you guys? The selective attention?
Yeah, on the academic foundations.
Yeah, so can you kind of summarize what you guys got out of this particular article, what they were up to here?
They did neural imaging on students that were in early academics, and so they were looking at their selective attention skills and whether they could be trained or not.
Uh-huh.
And they looked at like...
Let me just repeat it for the online. So they wanted to see if people could be trained to do selective attention. What is selective attention? What does that term mean?
Your ability to focus on the task and block distractions at the same time.
Exactly. Can you focus on this and not be distracted? Many times people with ADHD have trouble with that kind of idea. Sorry, you were talking, Madison. Keep going with things. What did they come up with here?
They were looking at different domains such as whether they could deploy selective attention in managing response conflicts and how fast they can complete a task.
Mm-hmm.
And they were also starting to look at how the effects of video games play in the mind and how the training of selective attention is increasing in children.
So if you could do these types of interventions in children, and if you look at, the middle pages of this article, they do brain imaging and see what areas of the brain are going on and what we can do about it. Once again, to get the main findings here, if you go to, we won't spend too much time on this, but there are activations in the brain, and they basically say you can do things, it's amenable to training and helping people out. Notice here that this is very interesting because this is in what journal for this one?
Cognitive neuroscience.
Yeah, it's kind of cognitive neuroscience, which could you almost make an argument that this is a little more cognitive neuropsych based? Yeah, maybe the developmental aspect of helping people out, but they try to summarize the findings there and these neural mechanisms going on. They get much more into the neural mechanisms, so maybe that makes it more neurobiology and the cognitive brain. Okay, so we've covered that one. We've covered the first one. The last article I'd like you to look at, if you can pull up on your computer, is, let me see if I can bring it up here, the attentive brain. Oh, I've got it up there. Can you guys bring it up on your systems as well? So let's kind of go through the abstract here. I'm just going to highlight one or two things about this article, and we'll get to our review. The attentive brain, insights from this. So visual attention functions as a filter to select certain information and look at things here. I think the key page that I would like you to look at for this article is page 29 of this article. Kind of the key points. So kind of the key take-home points for this article. Can you guys flip through? It's after the index there, but it's key points. Attention is a computation applied. Avoiding distraction is very difficult for some people to do, isn't it, with ADHD? We propose that there's brain architecture on this, and it really focuses in on the prefrontal cortex. This is where things come together and you focus attention, and then you can do higher level cognitive processing, which is the main idea. They get into short and long-term memory. That'll be the next unit. They talk about some genetic components in there as well. So this is an article of basically summarizing what's going on and coming up with a model of what we can do to help people out. So those are kind of the take-home points from this particular situation. Let me see if there's anything else that I want you to know from This one, yeah, actually, if you turn to page 30, once again, page 30 is what? Is that something you'd see in a cognitive neuroscience article? What are they doing on page 30? Say again?
The brain.
Yeah, here are the brain regions. The prefrontal cortex is considered the key area for integrating lots of things and responding to it. And people with ADHD many times have a lot of difficulty in doing this type of thing. So we're very much in the cognitive neuroscience and cognitive neuropsychology field, because now we're not just talking about dual tasks and so forth. Now we're talking about brain functions and helping people out. Comments or questions about that? Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording here, and the next thing we're going to do for the people in the online class, we're going to review I think it's chapter 7 of the book, and review what we've covered in, the other 2 classes or 3 classes? The other 2 classes, and then we'll get started.